while. Missed you guys. Where you been? Stuff going on. Things happening. The world is in play. Today's a hell of a day. Today's our big election day, right? And we've got all kinds of stuff going on. But I want to tell you about one of the things we have happening at our company. We have our 2022 live Medford holiday show. This is going on Friday, November 18th, 4:30 p.m. That's Friday, November 18th, 4 p.m. Arizona time. Remember, we're 2 hours between the East Coast and here, 1 hour in the Midwest. Same, let me see, an hour behind, hour ahead of California right now. I don't know, maybe they're the same as California right now. I don't know, I'm in Arizona. You guys can figure it out. Arizona time. I always forget. I can't remember. And I don't care. I think it's going away. We're going to be doing 50 custom Medford knives. We'll have a bunch of ASK customs as well. We've got, let's see, last on Christmas and Hanukkah gifts that you could get in time. We've got some Damascus one-offs. You'll be able to look at the previews the week before the show at medfordknife.com/VHS 2022. That's Virtual Holiday Show 2022. We'll have some giveaways. Be hosted by yours truly, the spirit guide on this mad adventure. And don't miss out. It should be, again, against Friday, November 18th, 4:30 p.m. Arizona time. At 7:30 for you East Coasters, 4:30 for you Westies. Everyone else, just check Arizona time in Google. Set it up. Put a little notice in your phone that Friday the 18th, Friday, November 18th, we're having this. So it's good fun. I'll have some surprise guests. I may have some hotties there. Who knows? It's election day. There's stuff going on. Now, I read in Politico because I was directed to a news article in Politico, which is a kind of a left-leaning, leftist rag of the intelligentsia of Washington, kind of, and the press in general. And they are warning, I know this is strange. Now, I haven't been able to talk about this on YouTube for 2 years because they take my videos down as misinformation, anti-American misinformation, disinformation, and misinformation. But Politico now, so maybe this is, I'm allowed to say it, I'm going to take a chance. Politico is saying the election may not be trustable. It may be corrupt because of voting machines. So a left-leaning, referential, and deferential news outlet is now saying what we've been saying for 2 years. And what we've been saying for 2 years is something's wrong. We'd like to look more closely and like to fix it. Matter of fact, we maybe like to take lead from the French, and we don't maybe want these machines anymore. These election machines have problems. And the problems are they have to connect and report. And to connect and report, they have to have software and connectivity. In order to have software and connectivity, they can be monkeyed with. The potential is there. I'm not saying it happened, because clearly Joe Biden got 81 million votes, clearly got more votes than anybody in American history, got more votes than Barack Obama, and clearly Trump lost the election. That's clearly what happened. And they've been running around for 2 years saying you're an election denier, you're an election denier, you're an election denier. And they've been sticking a microphone in any politician's face who says anything about election integrity, saying, what are you going to do? Are you going to honor the elections? And last I remember, Trump, and I don't agree with how everything went down, and I'm not sure how it went down, and I have doubts how it went down. And last I remember, the peaceful transfer of power took place, even though it didn't pass the sniff test of truth. Just as a reminder to crazy, affected mentalities, the peaceful transfer of power in 2020, which we all know in our gut something wasn't right. We all know it. Something wasn't right. We haven't been able to say it for 2 years. Now, Politico today is saying we have to worry about it. All of a sudden, on the day of an election where Democrats and liberals are expected to get their fucking teeth kicked in, now we have to be worried about it? How corrupt is that? For 2 years, people like me have been saying, hey, look, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, but we want to do an investigation. We'd like to find out what's going on here. No, you can't. We'd like to see the software that runs these machines. No, you can't. That belongs to this company or that company. You can't look at the software. Yeah, but something's not right. Why? Well, because we have CIA operatives and former special forces guys who actually monkey with elections like we just did down in South America. We just monkeyed with the elections in Brazil. We monkey with elections all over the world. And what's funny is the young men and women we trained to go do that job came back here, saw what happened, and said, gosh, this looks like what we do when we monkey with the outcome. How weird is this? They start talking about facts and giving evidence and doing mathematical and numerical breakdowns, and people like me start scratching their head going, well, God, we ought to look into this. And then what we do is we protect 2 companies or 3 companies involved in our election process, and we're not allowed to see the software. We're not allowed to see how this stuff is connected. They've been telling us it's the safest, most accurate, most trustable election for 2 years since they stuck a hot poker up the body politics ass and let it sizzle in deep. And we took it. They've been throwing people in jail. They've had people in jail since that day, which is unconstitutional, not even charged, for the most violent day in U.S. history. I have heard people say it equals what happened on December 7th, 1941 at Pearl Harbor. The January 6th thing. Like, all this stuff I'm saying, they're probably going to tear down my YouTube channel. All I'm saying is, this has all been suppressed. We have all been censored. I have held back what I'm saying. And now, because they'll shut down our commercial channels, they'll shut down our commercial visibility on the internet. They've been censoring and channeling, and all of a sudden, Politico is saying it today. Is it in the clear? YouTube, Google, I'd like to know. Is it okay now to say it? Like Politico says it. They're saying there is widespread problems with voting machines. They're saying it today in the newspaper, in Politico. And we haven't been allowed to say it. And we've been being told it's the most safe and fair above board election in U.S. history. I'm confused. Now, France, whom so many lefties want to emulate, they don't believe in election machines. They do paper counting. There's millions and millions of... We can paper count in this country. In Arizona, we wanted to paper count. Katie Hobbs, the dumb twat Secretary of State that we currently have, who is running for governor against Kari Lake, was against that. No paper ballots. The Supreme Court of Arizona said, paper ballots are okay. They can count paper ballots if they want in this county or that county. What happens? Perkins Coie. This is a Washington law firm, high-power law firm, that also was part of the Steele dossier. I mean, this shit's unbelievable. All this stuff you've been hearing about the dossier and Trump like being urinated on by Russian prostitutes, which was all a phony, fake, lying dossier to try and undermine the 2016 election. The same company that was part of that They're here in Arizona suing everybody so that we can't do paper ballots. Does anybody see a conflict of American interest there? Why is Perkins Coie, who was part of the Steele dossier and Clinton machine in Washington, D.C., here in Arizona, stopping us from doing paper ballots? Paper ballots, the thing about paper ballots, they were stopping us from hand counting. The thing about hand counting is a Republican and a Democrat sit next to each other, and they count off. Then it goes in a pile, and then they report the numbers, and it's done. Oh, there's millions and millions of people. We can't do that, Greg. Yes, we can. We have 6,000 precinct committeemen in Arizona. 6,000. Every precinct has got a precinct committeeman and a group of people that run an election. The more people, the more precinctmen you get. All these precincts can count the elections in their precinct. Oh, Greg, that's not true. The population density in cities, blah, 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 blah. There has been over a million person city here for years and years and years and years and years. And we were able to count the precincts within the densely populated city way back when. We can still do it now. There are just more of them, which the next precinct over has to count. It's not one precinct that counts everybody. The precincts count. They report their numbers back. That's it. Hand count. Hard to fake. It's analog. It can't be messed with. This digital stuff spooks me. Now, I've been saying it for 2 years. I've been saying it on iTunes. I've been saying it on Spotify. I've been saying it on Rumble, and I've been kicked off this medium so many times, it's unbelievable. I've been kicked off YouTube. Now, the sick part is I'm a patron of YouTube. I watch YouTube all the time. I fall in the YouTube rabbit hole almost every night. I watch what I want to watch on YouTube, and I love it. But for 2 years, they've been censoring Americans who have concerns. For 2 years, they've been calling us election deniers and liars. And they know they're going to lose today. And they've come out with this story. Now, this is where a smart liberal or Democrat might say, Greg, why are they worried about losing if they have the elections rigged? Good question. That's the question everybody should be asking. If I'm a fringe lunatic, you should, and I'm saying what I'm saying, or they're saying what they're saying, somebody should say, well, listen, if it's rigged, how could Trump have gotten elected in 2016? If it's rigged, how could the Democrats lose today? And the truth is, we've seen now, because of the investigations, we've seen how it happens. And it's more and more elegant. And it's harder to do it bigger. It's easier to do it when it's close. So they like to report everything's close. They like to report it a certain way. This is what concerns me. If you report it close, then however it goes down, you go, oh, it was a toss-up. If you don't report it close, it's hard to flip it. And it's hard to flip it without the citizens showing up with pitchforks. And so that's a fine line if you're a rigger of elections in any country at any point in time. If you rig an election and go against the populace, you can only do it a little bit, because if you do it a lot, at some point they show up with pitchforks. Or they storm the Bastille. Or they declare independence. Or they secede. All of those things have happened. I had somebody on this, Greg, stick to cutlery. Why? I am doing cutlery. And you know what? Knives, as much as I love them, they're super boring. Everybody talks about knives. You know the worst thing for me is to watch some guy talk about knives who says absolutely nothing interesting but talks about the knife. Like, I honestly, if I hear guys talk about knives, I want to swallow a fucking bullet. There's this guy, Nick Shabazz, out there. Now, Nick, he's interesting because he does funny voices, and he's kind of comical, and he adds a little personality to it. And he's a ding-dong, but his reviews aren't bad, And he's a little entertaining, but he doesn't just talk about the knives. He talks about himself and how really. So good for him. But in general, when I watch videos about guys talking about knives, I want to punch myself in the dick. I'm just like, awful. I talk about knives all the time. Do you think I want to get on here and vent with you guys about knives? Oh my God, you guys, I just had this TFF1 on here. Oh my God, it was so hard to grind, and we just got this polish on it. And there was a scratch on it. A customer returned it to me. I got a well-oiled machine here. I have a fantastic team. I have a bunch of great craftsmen. Everywhere I walk through the building, there's cool stuff going on. I show that. I do that all the time. Today, it's election day. And 2 days from today, it's a birthday of the Marine Corps. And I'll talk to you Marines then. But today, it's the election day. Now, knife stories. We have knife stories. The world is replete with knife stories. I could tell you stories about guys shot where the knife mounted on their chest was directly hit by a round that splattered up into their chin and across the front of them instead of piercing their body. I could tell you stories like that. I could tell you stories about Harley guys with knives in their pockets, sliding down the road, burning through their pants, but when they're on their knife, it's not tearing their skin up, so they skid down the road on their knife and they send their knife in to have me overhaul it. I could tell you stories about cars flipped over on the way to El Paso with the windows broke out and seatbelts cut from unconscious hanging passengers in their seatbelts. I can tell you about that. I don't know, I maybe got 20 of those stories, and then in 3 videos, that would be over. And then we'd be back to like, look what knife I'm making today. I'm the only guy in the business who's done a whole video series on my exact process on how I make knives. I did that so those of you who want to geek out on knife making could go do that. There is nothing more in-depth than those in the knife making world. It's as in-depth as it gets. It's the whole kit and caboodle. But today is election day. Today, if we let Kari Lake here in Arizona, a truth-talking conservative, Mark Fincham for Secretary of State, Abe Hamadeh, a Syrian immigrant, serving Army officer and attorney for Attorney General, Blake Masters for U.S. Senate, to displace Mark Kelly, who's a Biden acolyte. If we do that, and then in the next 2 years, go back to hand counting ballots, we will be a domino that changes the country for the better for 100 years. We have to go back to analog elections. We can't do these digital, computer-driven elections. It is too easy to mess with the algorithms. It's too easy to disappear people on YouTube and on Facebook and on Instagram and SnapMonkey and Ball Chat, and it's too easy to flip and change and delete your vote. It's too easy. I'm not saying that happened. I'm saying it's too easy for it to happen. We have to go back to analog. Because we can't have every election the losing side saying it's not fair. Every election the losing side saying democracy is being thwarted. We can't have the ruling party who's currently in power driving this country into the fucking cliff, saying that voting for anybody who opposes them is the end of democracy. We can't have that. I also want to float another idea out there. We've got all these voter ballot initiatives. I hate voter initiatives. Now, I know a lot of people say, oh, it's good. You get the people. People get to say it. Most people I know, when I talk to them about nuances of socioeconomic decisions and politics, don't know shit from Shinola. They don't. We don't live in a direct democracy. It's happened a couple times before. And when it's happened, it was the fall of Greece. It was the fall of Rome. Direct democracy is mob rule. It's the failure. The founding fathers addressed this directly. We live in a representative democracy where professional people go to represent us and are supposed to know the nuance of these big socioeconomic decisions. Well, they're all corrupt, Greg. Yes, they are. They're all problematic. Yes, they are. And we can all unelect them. Yes, we can. But I can't unelect my fellow citizens who are tricked by some phrase on a proposition to put an unconstitutional change to the Arizona. We have these constitutions for a reason. They create stability over time. The Congress, the Arizona state legislature, and Senate can't do stuff that's not constitutional. Well, Citizens for Teachers out of California can put an initiative on the ballot in Arizona. They don't even have to be a resident here. And it can have a tricky name that tricks everybody in the Save the Children's Education Act 101. I'm making this up, but this is going on. And then it's like, oh, it's good for the kids. And most people, it's good. I have so many people who call me because of my show, because of my podcast, because of this. Greg, hey, what do you think about this? What about this proposition? Hey, and I'll be like, hey, did you get your voter book? Yes. Have you read it? No. Okay, let's talk. I'll read it now. Let's go through it right now. These are complex issues. Most people, when they read them, don't understand the implications. That's why if you look who is sponsoring these things, you'll find some stuff out. Now, in Arizona, we have a book that comes out. Here's the proposition. Here's what it's modifying. Here's where it contradicts the Constitution or doesn't contradict our state. It is a big deal to change the Constitution. It takes a 2/3 majority vote. Why? Because that's what we agreed on to form our state. Yet a simple majority of 51% can pass unconstitutional laws and statutes into law here in Arizona. That means the Constitution is worth nothing if the mob rules it wants 30 days paid vacation every year on top of sick pay and family leave and medical act. It's mob rule. This is going on all over the country. Here's what I want as a citizen. If my legislature can't pass it based under the rules of our Constitution, I don't want it to be able to be passed. I don't want a slick group out of California, Washington, New York, or Pennsylvania to pop in with a pack, throw a bunch of money at getting something on the ballot and cramming something that Arizona doesn't want down our throats. And guess what? Who do you go after vote initiatives over? How do you unelect a voter initiative? If my congressman screw up, I can unelect them. If the population votes for something that's unconstitutional, there's no recourse. Who do I unelect? Oh, it goes to the Supreme Court? So now the Supreme Court's in charge of me? I can't unelect them either. Laws cannot be passed by propositions that companies and women's groups and the Gay Lesbian Alliance and the right-wing nut jobs for Jesus, they put these crazy initiatives on the ballot and people just vote for them. And then the state has to figure out, like, a quarter of them are unconstitutional. Half of them sometimes. And the state goes, the voters asked for this. It's batshit crazy. We can't do this. It's against the law. Well, the people want it. The people want it. That's because they pass by some narrow margin. They get 51%. Actually, they can if the state constitutionalizes it. I just said a bunch of them are unconstitutional. And our state it's not a direct democracy. Who passes the laws in this state? It's the legislature. So knowledgeable people can argue the nuance, and a group of people that are accountable to voters pass a law. Now, if the legislature's weak, elect new ones. If the legislature's weak, no change. If they can't do it, no new this, no new that. But to have California's lawyers for some cause, or people out of Michigan start a voter initiative in Arizona, or The angry moms whose kids got killed by drunk drivers, have them. That's conscious type person. So there have been numerous ones in every single state. It's not Greg saying they're on. I'm not a constitutional professor, nor are you. I'm pretty sure. There are unconstitutional voter initiatives being passed nationwide, and they're very challenging for states to deal with. They have to enact them. Now, if your constitution allows for voter initiatives, which ours does now, we're stuck with the flotsam and jetsam of groupthink and these sales pitch voter initiatives. And I know you, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, you're lying, you're a liar, disingenuous. So they're cramming these initiatives down states' throats, and then states have to figure out what to do. And they don't even know. When you pass laws, part of passing laws, they work out how to implement it. And sometimes they go, there's no way to implement this. Dumb law, we don't do it. Well, the voter initiatives just say, well, we want this, make it so. And they foist it on the legislature. Well, the people didn't get together and ask for this. Some PAC did, some political action group, campaign, donor, or Mark Zuckerberg and his $400 million. Somebody else comes up with an idea. Then they pay people. You can see the ads in Craigslist. Well, no, but I have a law degree, so I have some perspective. I'm just asking for some specifics. I'm doing a quick YouTube video. I'm not going to run through specifics, but I'll tell you, Prop 210 and Prop 211 here in Arizona were both kept off the ballot because they're unconstitutional, and there's a bunch of lawsuits going about what they're trying to push out into the public. They couldn't agree on the terms of the proposal, so it got left off the ballot. That's just one example. There's another amendment in the Arizona propositions right now. There is a proposition that says, and this is a big deal. They want the voters to say to the legislature, you have the ability to line item stuff off of voter initiatives that have been ruled unconstitutional or go in contretemps to the Arizona state constitution. All right, they're not passing that law because there are a bunch of laws that are all constitutional and smooth. There are things that are rational and reasonable in fucktard nutty California that when they press their proposition into Arizona legislature goes, that's not even constitutional. We can't do that. We can't even do that. And we're the legislature. And what happens is they said, oh, well, the proposition process doesn't verify constitutionality. We just have to come up with this. This comes up with we just have to get the signatures and get it on the ballot. You know, they're trying to topple the bordering states with the same crazy shit that's sinking their own state. And most people don't read the voter initiatives. I just read I think it was 130 pages. Jeff and I just kind of cranked through them. So all I'm saying is, I find it extremely ironic that the same people who have been pointing at us, calling us election deniers, pointing at us, calling us delusional lunatics, pointing at us, calling us conspiracy theorists. We've been getting dumped off of Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, every platform. I have to be very careful about what I say on YouTube. The same people are now saying on the day of the election, Politico is saying, we have to be careful, these machines are problematic and the election could be rigged. The same people who have been critical and saying that we're lunatics are now saying the exact same thing. And all we ever wanted from day one was hand count votes, so this can't be corrupted by unseen eyes, unseen hands, unseen actors behind the scenes. You know, everybody's standing around guarding the polls. That's not where the cheating's happening. I mean, there's some ballot stuffing that's probably always gone on. You know, I think there's always a little bit of mess to the election. There's always been a little mess, and I think it's just part of the process. You know what I mean? Like when you do surgery, some blood splatters around. I get it. You know, people are zealots. Some people are lawbreakers. You can't screen everybody who's involved. There's always a little bit of white noise to an election, right? But the stuff going on behind the scenes with the algorithms and the machines, that stuff I have seen enough evidence for it to spook me. And that's the thing Politico's talking about. So I'm not making an assertion. I'm just saying it's being reported in the news now that it's a problem. Now that the Democrats look pretty positioned to kind of get their teeth kicked in today. It's a good lesson for us to all learn when they start. Right now you can espouse Nazi propaganda, white supremacy, warmongering. You can say all kinds of stuff. The Ayatollah of Iran can be tweeting. Anybody can say just about anything, but a free citizen like me can't say I've been to a meeting and seen something that makes me suspect of a certain kind of equipment that's used in elections. That gets deleted. Does anybody, if you're a liberal, a classic liberal who is in the left side of the aisle still, because you don't realize the American political landscape has shifted right up from under your lefty feet, you have to, if you're an honest broker, look at that and go, I don't want the referee cheating for my team either. I want to win or lose. I'm okay with that. I've never griped about an election once in my entire life. I'm not an election denier. I'm a truth embracer. And if you don't think something weird happened, you're a truth denier. I call it the limit, the straw at which we choose, the straw which we choose to look at the world through. This will be my last musing for the day, and I will get off. If you look at somebody who looks at, say, a Tesla and says, look at my car, it burns less gas, I'm doing something good for the environment. Well, if they just look at the car and compare it to an internal combustion engine car, they are right. It burns less gas. If they look at the months leading up to the car getting finished, it's not so clear. If they look at the year preceding the cars being manufactured and the chromium being extracted from the earth and molybdenum and the lead and everything that's required for the batteries, if you take all of that, the cadmium, all of that stuff that's and the nickel that's required to make those batteries, and all the energy that's required to make, there's a reason the battery costs some exorbitant component price of the car. Like if you have to replace your batteries on a Tesla at 75,000 miles, it's way more than 15 grand. It's a bunch of money. You guys can tell me the money. If you're a grown up and you open your straw up to look at the world with a little bigger perspective and you look a little bit further back, yeah, Joe Biden got more votes than Barack Obama. That makes sense. If you look a little further back, the Tesla is a very challenging vehicle to make an argument for. It requires more than just energy and metal to make it. Energy, metal, and plastic. Energy, metal, plastic, lead. Energy, metal, plastic, lead, acid, heavy metals extracted from the earth that are very challenging to extract and can do some serious pollution if not done correctly. So you do them in China, so it's cheap. They pollute, they don't care. Is your vehicle really doing a great job for you? Is it really doing a great job for the environment? Take the same Tesla, run it on the East Coast where they don't have as much nuclear power. Now you're running on coal and oil and hydrocarbons to run your car. Now you plugged in at your house, but the electricity was made with hydrocarbons. Putting all of these copper wires that run to these charging stations, the charging station doesn't last forever. They have to be replaced. That's all a cost of the vehicle. Now, I have read report after report on the life cycle of a product. And what it says very clearly, and Will, you're right. You have to bet 80,000 miles for it to break even, but then you got to buy new batteries. And so that goes even further. They said they compared a Hummer to a Prius. And all the way up to 100,000 miles, the Hummer was better for the environment than the Prius was. Now, I know the Tesla is I haven't seen that comparison with the Tesla, but it's real and it's there. It's just how much do you want to limit your scope in this world? Mature people they stop this narrowing this habit, this myopic tendency there is for people who are really hard and fast. They open up their view and they take it all in. Now, the problem with this is it can run into conflicts with your ethos. You open up your view, all of a sudden you see things that challenge you. And people don't like that. Oh, they narrow back down and get myopic again. This is the allegory of the cave in Plato's Republic. There's no question a Tesla burns less gas than an internal combustion car. There is great question about over the life cycle of the product, is it beneficial for the environment? The answer is no, it's not. It's not really beneficial because the batteries don't last forever and the car does wear out. And it wears out at 70,000 miles, 65. I've been reading, I was looking at buying one. The batteries cost a lot. They're a big component of the car. When you replace those, there's all sorts of other stuff that kicks the can further down the road. The life cycle of the product is what matters. With you got to look at the life cycle of nuclear. The cheapest, cleanest, most environmentally friendly energy on the planet that nobody wants in their state. It's how narrow and how far do we want our scope to be? How big of a straw do you want to look at the world? It's compassionate to not arrest homeless people. It's compassionate. And then they degenerate into drug use, and they degenerate into tearing apart communities, and they degenerate into crime. How compassionate is that? Oh, if you only look at the one little component of not arresting the homeless person or not jamming them up with the system, it's easy if you have a very narrow, myopic perspective to do decisions that are bad. Make decisions that are bad. Our children, it hurts to see our children suffer, but it is good for them to suffer and overcome, because in the long run, with mature perspective, they become more balanced, more persevering, better adults. It's how big do we want our vision to be and how small do we want our vision to be? I find my average American doesn't think more than 20 to 30 days out in front of their moment. When I ask them about it, the biggest thing they ever plan out in the future is a vacation or someone else's wedding. When I ask my friends who are successful, very different tone. They have this view. They've got their flashlight beam pointed up and they're thinking way down in the future. You talk to Elon Musk, he's thinking 100 years in the future. He's thinking about the species, big thoughts, big ideas. Rupert Murdoch, he thinks on a different scale than I do. If you look at, what's his name from Berkshire Hathaway? My middle-aged brain's not pulling his name up right now. He thinks generationally about building wealth, and he thinks on a long arc, and he doesn't get messed up by the ebbs and flows of the day-to-day. I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was talking about his girlfriend, and she was fetching about her 401k, how it's down, and she's in her 40s. And he was like, hey, are you planning on retiring this year? No, don't worry about it. Because unless the society completely collapses, there's a couple more cycles, relax. Quit looking at it. Just keep putting your money in it. Go to work, do your thing, enjoy your life. How big is your scope, your vision that you look at the world? My scope's pretty big. I think if I was a money-grubbing merchant capitalist, mercenary capitalist, I wouldn't do any of this, because all of this has a potential to bite me in the ass. I think it's better for the country and my fellow humans, my fellow Americans, to hear what I say. and be emboldened to speak their mind and be emboldened to change someone else's mind and rub up against my ideas. And when I hear their ideas back, sometimes they push me a little bit. I'm okay with that. That's the human condition, right? I put my troops, my soldiers, my ideas up before me. You put yours up. We mingle a little bit and see who's got better ideas. You know, godless leftists love Darwin and the process of selection of the species, the survival of the fittest. But God forbid it be our ideas in our day-to-day life. We live in concordance with that idea. My ideas should be able to be wrung out in the open. And your ideas, more than a catty snark, should be able to push back at me. Now, guys get on catty snark and go, well, what things are unconstitutional? Listen, I'll tell you what, I've heard as much as 1 in 5 ballot amendments, ballot measures in the United States are borderline unconstitutional in their state. Then what happens is they have to get shook out in the courts and they jam up the courts for years. We have voter initiatives and 2 years later they get dropped. It was unconstitutional. They go to the Supreme Court. It's not even constitutional in the country. I'm not making this up. This is real stuff. The guy's a lawyer. Look it up. Guy's a lawyer trying to red herring me. I'm not going to fucking quote case law. All I know is I just read through about 30 ballot initiatives, and 3 of them were regarding unconstitutional ballot initiatives. That's 10%. You got people who don't even make arguments. They obfuscate. All right, well, listen, that's my chat today, sports fans. Best of luck to you all on voting day. Cross your fingers for the Republic. And I wish you well. I hope tomorrow we wake up and there's red on everyone's hands. And there's red prints and everyone's trying to figure out what to do with all the red. I'll talk to you guys later. I'm out. Don't forget, November 18th for my live holiday show. It's going to be a hoot. Bunches of knives. November 18th, 4:30 p.m. Arizona time. Join me. See you, folks.